go. So welcome today to our IAPC&M CPD and Business Building Masterclass. My name is Julie Kennedy and I am your host. So warm greetings to you all today and a special welcome, of course, to IAPC&M accredited Master Coach Monica Jonsson, founder of Coach Dynamics, who coaches senior executives and entrepreneurs in the global business community. Monica is also actually the author of the Complete Corporate Coaching Toolkit, which I hear is doing very well, but I'm sure she will tell us about. Before we get into the core of the matter, some housekeeping. Our call today will be a maximum of 1 hour, including 15 minutes Q&A. So the session is recorded, so please keep yourself muted, but if possible, keep your video on, if that's okay with you, just so that the speaker's not sort of speaking to herself. We have, Monica's asked that we do the questions at the end, but maybe one idea would be to use the chat box for questions and suggestions, so at least you don't forget them as we go along. And then once we get to the end of Monica's presentation and take the Q&A, then we can find our questions there. So enough from me, right on to our topic for today, powerful tools for coaching 21st leaders. Now, we certainly need some of those. So I hope you all have your CPD pads and pens ready so we can really make the most of what we hear today. And Monica, it's over to you.
So thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for that introduction. And let me just start by saying what a pleasure and privilege it is to deliver this leadership masterclass with the IAPC&M. So I've been an accredited member since 20 years now, which is unbelievable, but the consistent support and guidance that I continue to receive from the association is nothing short of invaluable. So I really want to say that here at the outset. So thank you so much. Okay, so when I started out as corporate coach, I very quickly realized that practical tools would be a very useful complement to the coaching conversation for popular topics such as leadership, effective communication, stakeholder management, and so on. I felt that the right tools not only had the potential to accelerate clients' progress, but also to provide them with a kind of lasting support also beyond the coaching engagement. But when I went looking for such a toolkit, I never found one that really met my expectations. So in the end, I decided to create the tools I was looking for myself. And so I'm going to activate the slideshow now because I have chosen to, let me see, does everyone see that? Is that visible to everybody? Yes, okay, great. So the title of this masterclass is rightly so powerful tools for coaching 21st century leaders. Since I am active in that corporate domain and working with senior executives and leaders. So fast forward to a few years ago, given the proven effectiveness of these tools that I've created, along with clients' continuous positive feedback, I decided to write a book and to make the toolkit then more broadly available. So the book is titled The Complete Corporate Coaching Toolkit, Quintessential Guide for 21st Century Business Coaches and Leaders. And as you can see, it's available on Amazon. It was published last year. The tools presented in the book are designed for one-to-one coaching and have been developed over 12,000 coaching hours with executives in numerous organizations and really across multiple industries. I've written this book with two audiences in mind. So for professional coaches like myself and like probably the people on the call here who want to be more effective in coaching their clients. And for people, executives in or aspiring to be in a leadership role where the tools can be used to self-coach. And as you will see throughout this masterclass, the book truly delivers on the promise of being a practical and ready-to-use toolkit. And moreover, it has a strong emphasis on leadership in that it addresses what it takes to be an effective and relevant leader at any level in today's now constantly changing world. I have included the table of contents here so that you can see that It actually includes the 7 most popular coaching topics in the corporate business domain, which are leadership, and the leadership part has been divided into 2 parts: general leadership skills, where it's about developing the client's own leadership capacities and skills, and then leading the team, so leading others. Effective communication, emotional intelligence, stakeholder management, influencing and negotiation, personal efficiency and effectiveness, and last but by no means least, life balance. So of these 7, leadership really continues to be the most popular topic by far among my clients. And that's probably why it also occupies the largest part of this book here. And so in today's masterclass, I will be sharing tools from the book's first leadership part, general leadership skills. But before diving into the tools, I want to share with you a little bit of background and context around corporate leadership. So a common question that I get from executives when I'm coaching is, what does it take to become a great leader? Now, we all recognize great leaders in our presence, but interestingly, no one leader seems to conform to a single template. The topic of leadership is big, it's multifaceted, and it triggers a wide range of opinions about what it is precisely. Where the truth is that there actually is no consensus about the exact definition of leadership. And this is probably because what is required from leadership evolves over time and with each generation. But one thing that most people do seem to agree on, though, is that leadership is no longer only about seniority and position, but rather about how you behave and what you do. And most of us seem to agree on the following points: that a person can be in a leadership position, but may not be leading. And we see this all the time in the world, from business to politics. That leaders can exist at all levels of an organization. And those, of course, who lead without a title are an excellent example of that. That excellent individual contributors or technical experts do not by default make good leaders, because there is a completely different range of skill set that is required here. And finally, most of us agree that these days, leaders need to inspire followers with a clear purpose that resonates with them. In other words, you can be the smartest person in the organization, but if no one wants to follow you, you cannot be a leader. You will walk alone and your people will be disengaged. And Benjamin Hooks expresses this eloquently when he says, if you think that you are leading and turn around to see no one following, well, then you are just taking a walk. When I talk about modern 21st century leadership, which really is the focus of my book, I refer to a global paradigm shift towards principles that are now more human by nature, where we see a shift from the individual heroic leader to developing leaders at all levels, from environments that are very controlling to environments that are now more empowering people to take ownership and accountability, from business environments that are very predictable to business environments that are totally uncertain, from competition to collaboration, from mindsets of you're either a winner or a loser to can we find outcomes where all parties can win, from individual contribution to increasingly teamwork, from exclusion to environments of how can we be inclusive of everyone, from an excess focus on profit and greed to a larger focus on purpose. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's rather a summary of points that are important to understand if our client's aim is to become a modern leader as opposed to an outdated leader. And as we review these points, we see a clear move away from leadership styles defined by control and command to those that are more centered around people and that therefore require aptitude from leaders in soft or human skills. And personally, I see this as a massive call to action for leaders everywhere to sharpen and update their leadership in order to cultivate the inclusive, purposeful, and human cultures that are in demand today by employees, really across all 4 generations that we have in the workforce now. And of course, the great news is that coaching is the perfect vehicle to help narrow this leadership gap. So we're going to have a look at some powerful tools that can be used to develop and enhance these much needed skills. To make this masterclass a useful learning experience for you, I am not going to be using the original templates. But in order for you to understand what the original tools look like and the look and feel as they are presented in the book and how they are presented to clients, I've taken a screenshot of 2 of the tools that I will be presenting today. So as you can see, each tool has a name, the topic it belongs to, and then the actual exercises that follow the tool. Exercises in terms of questions, it can be concepts, followed also by exercises. You will see a number next to each title here, but those numbers are only for reference purposes in the book so that readers can easily find the tools that they are looking for and map them back to the table of contents. In the book, each tool is also accompanied by a textbook that a text box that very clearly describes how to use each tool. So I will usually present a relevant tool to a client at the end of the coaching conversation to take them through it so that they understand it and to give it to them as homework for the next session. And this is really to encourage a more profound reflection in order to set the client up for meaningful action. Now, the first tool I usually begin with in the leadership part of the toolkit is this one. What makes a good leader? So this tool invites the client to think about leadership from their own experience of being led by others. And even though leadership is such a hot topic among executives, I have found that people seldom stop to think about what leadership actually means for them, which is why the first question in this tool is, what does leadership mean for you? Now, this may be a simple question, but it triggers a lot of useful reflection about the meaning behind the word for the client. Next, I will ask the client to think about 1 or 2 more people that in a leadership position, past or present, who have inspired them. So to really think about how their experience in being led. So who in a leadership position has inspired you and would you be willing to follow? And I ask them then to list the qualities of that leader or those leaders. I don't want them to write like a paragraph. I really want them to think about the keywords, because as they are writing down the keywords, they're really noting for themselves, these are the elements that I have found inspiring. And that's important to understand. Next, I ask them to think about the values and behaviors they consider to be important in a leadership context. So to be a good leader, what values do you, the client, believe someone needs to have? And in your opinion, what specific behaviors should a good leader demonstrate when interacting and relating to others? And finally, what comes to your mind now that you have completed the exercise? So as you can see, the purpose of these questions in the first tool is really to activate the emotive parts within the client that are so essential to effective leadership, as opposed to coming at things purely from an intellectual point of view. And not surprisingly, when clients are asked to think about what makes leaders inspiring, I find that most of the qualities that they list are actually then in the soft skill domain. And that is, of course, worth knowing and understanding. So these reflections and insights following these initial questions really provide a very good foundation for further exploration. Now, as everyone on this call knows, one of the main objectives in coaching is, of course, to help deepen our clients' self-awareness. Because to Aristotle's point, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And so once the client has considered their experiences of being led by others, now it's time to turn the thinking inward, to reflect on themselves and their leadership. So the next tool is called self-awareness. And so to that end, I will ask them to reflect and complete the following questions. When do you take time to reflect about yourself in your role as leader? And here the realization is usually, well, not enough. The next question is, how would you describe your leadership style, strong and weak points? And so again, some clients here are very aware of their leadership and can very easily answer both their strong and their weak points. But there are quite a few that have a bit of difficulty on this and really have to sit down and think about what their leadership style is. And this is so important in terms of this self-awareness. How aware are you about the impact you have on others as leader? And is your impact what you want it to be? So this question is closely linked to emotional intelligence, as it requires the client to also consider their leadership from the perspective of others. And taking this external perspective is new to many, but it will typically trigger their curiosity to start paying attention to this and to better understand this aspect. What do you want to achieve for the area of business that you manage? So now we're into vision and purpose. And while this question may look easy at first glance, articulating one's vision and purpose in a way that is understood and compelling to others will usually require some in-depth reflection for the client. And this is really important because to inspire and create engagement, having a captivating vision is, of course, a necessity. And I'm not only talking about the CEO level here or the C-suite. Anyone who is leading a department or a team of people needs to have some kind of a vision that will captivate the team so that the team is working towards one direction together. How would you describe your leadership voice? And how would you like to continue to develop it? So leadership voice is something that is new to many, and yet your voice as leader is the most powerful tool that you have at your disposal. But to help spark thinking, I usually need to clarify this point. And so I clarify it with something like, your leadership voice reflects how you show up as leader. It conveys your core values, how you articulate your vision, how you contribute your ideas, how you engage others, how you deliver feedback, how you handle conflict, and so on. Knowing that today's leaders need to inspire followers, what behaviors do you need to demonstrate and or develop to be effective? And what behaviors are you displaying that prevent you from achieving this? So this set of questions reminds the client how important it is to inspire followers, right? And to not lose sight of that. What kind of leader do you want to be? So in other words, what does the client want to be known for? How do they want others to speak about them? So here I ask clients to complete the sentence. I want to be the kind of leader who ... And once the client has articulated this and knows what they're aspiring towards, I usually refer to this as their lighthouse. Now we know what the lighthouse looks like, and therefore we can continue to return to it throughout our sessions as we are talking about it. And finally, and so important, how will you know that you are succeeding in your practice to become the leader you want to be? What will the success factors and evidence be? So helping the client to visualize and to internalize what that would be. What would the experience of that be like? What would that look like? What would that feel like? So from here, we're going to have a look at leadership styles. Now, Daniel Goleman is often referred to as the father of emotional intelligence, but he has also conducted a lot of research about leadership. And he states that the best leaders don't know just one style of leadership. They're skilled at several and have the flexibility to switch between styles as the circumstances dictate. Now, leadership being the most popular soft skill topic among executives, it's no surprise that there are a lot of models that have been developed around leadership styles. But one that continues to stand out for me is one that has been developed by Goleman and consulting firm Hay McBeer. By studying close to 4,000 managers, they uncovered 6 distinct leadership styles: visionary, pace-setting, affiliate, coercive, democratic, and coaching. And for each of these styles, they defined a modus operandi. They coined the style in one phrase. They described when the style works best, but also, and this is what I love about this, the long-term impact on company culture. So we take an example, the visionary style. You use it to mobilize and inspire people towards a shared vision and a larger purpose. In a phrase, you could say this is, come with me. The style works best when explicit vision and direction is required, and it has a positive impact on culture. So of the 6 styles, we see that visionary, affiliate, democratic, and coaching all have long-term positive impact on company culture. The other 2, which are pace-setting and coercive, are useful in certain situations, but they should be applied with care due to their negative long-term impact on culture. So when we need to use those, we use them, we dip in, and we dip out again. It's all about what the situation requires. I really love this model. For me, in my coaching, this has really stood the test of time. I love it because it demonstrates in such a simple and elegant way why no one leadership style can be considered as absolute. How quite the contrary, to be an effective leader, one has to be mindful about the situation and use the style suitable for it. And you know, this tool will also usually spark great interest and enthusiasm from my clients because it provides the kind of framework that many have yearned for. Why? Because it makes the abstract more real and concrete for them. And it allows them to really identify the areas where they are strong, to really be able to put some articulation around that, but also the areas that they need to work on. So what I'll do is I'll typically take the client through the chart and I'll coach them to connect the dots back to their role, back to their mission, back to what they are seeking to achieve. And once the client has made an initial analysis with me, then I will then ask them to continue their reflection as homework and answer the following 3 questions for the next session that they then send to me in advance. So, which of the 6 styles are your preferred natural style? Which of the 6 would be useful to incorporate into your leadership style? And to what end? Why? And what do you need to do to make this happen in order to expand your leadership repertoire and thereby become more effective in your leadership role? So let me just clarify here. This is not about changing who we are. This is about expanding our repertoire, bringing out these aspects of ourselves and practicing that and getting better at that to be able to make it one's own so that we can be authentic to that. So again, the insights here provide really good ground in making the coaching conversations so much richer and really being able to turn the client's insights into meaningful action. Now, moving on, I want to talk about, the value of this self-reflection. So as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, this regular self-reflection is so key to attain a good degree of this self-awareness we're talking about. We can't be self-aware if we don't take time to really sit down and think. And ultimately, self-reflection is also key to attain great leadership, to reflect on, are my leadership decisions and actions resulting in the outcomes I want? And that brings us to the final tool that I want to share with you in this masterclass today. So, of course, called self-reflection. So I will typically recommend that clients block time, and ideally I will recommend weekly, to contemplate on how they lead and how impactful they are, because this will help them to adjust ineffective behaviors and styles, and again, to make better decisions. However, blocking time is, of course, the easy part. To reflect on oneself is not always so straightforward. So the purpose of this tool is to provide examples of questions to guide this kind of reflection, and aims really to motivate the client to make this a habit for themselves and to do this regularly. So here are the examples of questions I've put together for my clients, which they then again complete as homework, and that I then encourage them to continue doing on a regular basis. Are my decisions, so if I'm reflecting back on the week that was, or 2 weeks ago, are my decisions and actions resulting in the outcomes I want? If yes, what's the evidence for that? I want them to drill deeper. This is not enough with just a yes or no answer. And then if no, then why not? How well do I connect, listen, and seek to understand the people around me? If I put myself in the shoes of those I lead, does my style and behavior reflect how I want to be led? In other words, would I follow me? So this encourages the client to also take the second position to themselves and reflect from there. Am I leading and communicating sufficiently from a bigger picture perspective? So incorporating the vision, the purpose, and the strategy. And if not, then what is blocking me from doing so? Because it's so easy in this crazy world with all this noise we're living in to get bogged down into details and somehow assume that the bigger picture is obvious to everyone. So here the client is reminded, about the importance and the significance of that bigger picture communication. How often do I seek feedback about myself from those around me? This is so important, because when we are looking to sharpen skills like leadership, then feedback is the most valuable means of knowing that we are on track. And since it takes courage to ask for feedback, this may not be so easy to put into practice for the client. So some gentle encouragement from the coach can make all the difference here. And once they start to ask for feedback, they almost can't stop. So that's also very interesting, actually. Am I taking care of myself and my well-being to be the best possible version of myself? Is anything missing? What do I need? So tapping into the importance of self-care and life balance. Am I in alignment with the kind of leader I want to be? So you will recall I talked about the lighthouse. Since they've already articulated what they're aspiring to, then they have a reference to be able to answer this and really making this very concrete for themselves. And finally, following my reflections over the last couple of weeks, what do I need to be more mindful about? So that concludes the 4 tools that I wanted to share with you today. I hope that doesn't been that sort of overload, but I wanted you to really get a sense of how we can complement the coaching conversation. I don't always use tools in the coaching conversations. The tools are really a complement to the conversation, and the tools should never take over your ability to coach. They have to be a complement to the conversation. It has to make sense. It has to be meaningful for the client. And like I say, I use these very often. I will pull it out at the end of a coaching session, given what we've talked about. I will go through it with the client so that they understand what's expected, and they will complete this as homework, which they will send to me in advance of the next session. And then we will discuss some of the key points and insights together. And again, that is what makes the coaching so much richer, because the client has had a chance to really think about this. And with that profound thinking also comes lasting change, right? And so you keep coming at it, and the client gets more and more motivated to put these actions into practice. Okay, so how are we doing for time here? Are we okay?
Oh, absolutely fine. I mean, you actually still have another 15 minutes should you wish to pursue on anything else. Otherwise, we can open it up and see where the discussions take us, the questions.
Yeah, maybe let's open it up, maybe.
I mean, for once, I would like to say already straight off, thank you, because you've certainly, I've been scribbling like mad here. It sounds like an absolutely amazing tool. I mean, really very inclusive, very concise, very practical, but at the same time, extremely deep. And I also like what you say. I think some coaches have a tendency to hide behind the tools, whereas you very much have the conversation, and then the tool is the homework for reflection until the next time. And I think that does make very much sense, right? Because the client's setting the agenda as well, so you don't want to be pushing in a certain direction. No. Let me see, has anybody, I've been listening so eagerly, I haven't actually looked even at the chat box. Now, let's not be shy here. We're very lucky to have Monica with us. I mean, I would certainly recommend getting the book. I've written it down in big here. That will be the thing that I will do when I get off the call. Does anybody have any specific questions regarding to how these tools work, how Monica uses them? Maybe I start with myself. I was just thinking, okay, so the client's setting the agenda, and you just make sure that for each session during the session, you decide which of the tools would be the most appropriate as homework.
Yeah, so obviously at the very outset of a coaching assignment, you get together with your coachee and you define a number of goals that you're going to work on. And leadership, I have to say, is almost always part of that. I will work with 2 to 3 to 4 sometimes different goals with my clients. Leadership is one of them. So, and then to really define that goal very precisely so that it really resonates with the coachee. And then when I'm coaching on leadership development, then I more or less know, because of the formulation of the goal, what the client wants. So I will sometimes, when I'm coaching face to face or in person rather, then I'll bring with me some tools, but I'll only take them out at the end if they make sense. So I'll always have some, with me just in case, or what I think. But if it doesn't go that way, then I will not, So I'm very much, I love what you said there. It's really, I mean, as coaches, we're engaged in a dance with our coachees where the client leads the way and we follow. And so there may be sessions where there are absolutely no tools at all. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, just how you've put all of this all together. I'm not seeing any other questions just yet, but maybe one that I have is, obviously there is a generation change now in the style of leadership, etc. Do you often come across, let's say, leaders more from the older school, more the coercive style, and how do they react to this sort of thing?
So I actually get contacted quite frequently by CEOs and CEOs are generally smart people because they took themselves to the top of the house. And they know that they need to update their leadership. They know that there is now a disconnect, and that the style that has served them thus far is not going to take them further. And we're in a time now of really great transition because of this global paradigm shift that I talked about. And so because there's such a disconnect, they need to learn how to become 21st century leaders by becoming much more human oriented and really considering that human capital, and not just saying that people are our greatest asset. That doesn't fly anymore. What are you actually doing to demonstrate that? And what is the leadership team doing to cultivate these cultures? And so we're seeing that shift. And because that is not happening fast enough, that's why we have been experiencing the Great Resignation, which I'm sure everyone has heard about, quiet quitting. People are feeling very disengaged because of these old structures and old styles, control and command styles, the kind of styles I grew up with in
exactly. That's what I was thinking
when I was there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And it comes easier to some than to others. I was going to ask a bit of a gender bias question. Would you say that it comes easier to women to adapt this style of leadership than to men?
If we generalize, then I would say yes. And then there are always exceptions on both sides. Yeah.
I'm not
because
saying
a lot of these, because there are men that are fantastic listeners, and there are women that don't listen at all. So, but if we generalize, then yes.
Thank you. Now, come on, let's not be shy here. You don't need to write it in the box. Just unmute yourself and ask a question. Yes,
I think Cynthia has a question.
Yes. Since you're working with in the business, let's say, domain, okay, do you feel that because the subjects that you deal with are specified, like leadership, do you think that there's a set of questions that you ask all the time, like a list of questions that you use all the time with your clients?
No. I mean, obviously the tools remain the same, but when you are sitting in live session with your client, I would say, this is my experience. I think when I started out as coach, which is now a very long time ago, but I remember then being so very, very conscious about that. I wanted to ask the right question, and I would be very much in my head about the right question to ask, and almost like as the client was answering, I was immediately thinking about the next smart question to ask and so on. But I think as you go along and you get your practice, if you can let go of yourself, you start to find that you start to coach from the heart. And when you start to coach from the heart, somehow you just know what questions to ask. Because if you're paying attention and really entering the world of the client, and your curiosity is switched on to the max, you will start to find, and you take the attention of yourself, you'll start to find that these questions will come. But it does take practice. So I always say to people who are starting out in coaching or have been coaching a few years, the best way to become a great coach is to practice. Get as much practice in as you can alongside with your training and so on. Because sometimes I find, because I've done a lot of training and courses as well, that people are so focused on the training and less focused on getting the practice in. Just another course, just another course, just another course. Yes, but you have to practice also, because that is what's going to make you an outstanding coach. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes,
that's a good question. Good question, and an excellent answer as well. And of course, the practice is the hard work, because that's what we have to do. The attending the course and listening to all the great things we should be doing. We can just sort of sit back and take notes, but it's actually And that's what I like also about these IAPC and MCPD is really the idea of taking action on what we learn here, instead of just a whole bunch of fantastic ideas, but to really put it into practice. And that's what your book sounds like as well, with the questions, which we can also like do on ourselves as well.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah, and of course, this is targeting corporates, but I mean, you can be leaders in very many different domains, right? You can be leader as a head of a family, for example, or as, you know, in any voluntary organization, etc. It's about leadership, right? It's about getting people together with a common goal and how to get there, and developing.
Well, this is what's so interesting, because I've had feedback from people outside of corporate that have actually bought the book or been gifted the book, and even university students that are in their final year of their either master's exam or master graduation, that have come back and said, wow, you know, this book is just so incredibly useful. It's such a great complement to the curriculum that we're studying for our business. Why? Because we still at school are not taught these human skills. We're mostly taught the technical skills. And so that's been extremely encouraging. And I have a couple of universities that have picked up the book as well and are looking at it currently, but also people outside of corporate. But when you write also, and because I'm mostly active in corporate, you have to ring fence yourself somewhere.
Right.
So, but you're right. You're right. It does actually appeal further.
But that is good news that the universities are thinking of it, because that is something that should be taught, right? It is something, and it is a skill that comes more naturally to some than to others, but that all can learn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember it being quite shocking myself when I graduated university, which is now 100 years ago. But I remember walking in, you know, starting there in corporate world, there are so many unwritten rules, and you really, nobody has told you what the working environment is really like. You are quite unprepared for it when you step into it. And so a lot more could be done there to prepare students for, you know, leadership, emotional intelligence, effective communication, stakeholder management, and all of this. They would just get a much better start into their careers if that was also taught.
So hopefully it will go into the curriculum. Anybody else have a question? All sorts of questions go. There's no stupid question. There's no, just make use of it.
I'm going to just jump in. I'm sorry about the camera, but I'm not looking fancy today. Monica, this is so interesting. I love your talk for us today. Tell us a little bit about your journey with how you wrote the book. It's so extensive and it's so structured. How did you end up with that beautiful, very pedagogical toolbox? How did you go about it?
Yeah, so it really was. I was very encouraged by the feedback that I would, like I said, the feedback that I was getting from the clients. And, you know, I would have clients that, because sometimes I've been doing this for a long time now. So sometimes clients, you know, might take a break and then they might come back 5, 6, 7 years later because they're facing some kind of challenge or they got some new role or something and they want to have some more coaching. And so they would then people would tell me, wow, I'm still using the tools. And I thought, wow, that's really amazing, is still using the tools. And so that really encouraged me to publish this and to make the toolkit more broadly available. So, but I did struggle. I struggled a lot at the outset thinking about the audiences. So I knew I wanted to write something for coaches, but I also wanted to write something for people who maybe, you know, don't have the possibility to have a coach, and so that they could use them to self-coach themselves. So it took a long time for me to figure out how to address two audiences, which I, after many iterations, managed kind of to nail down. And then, of course, when you do something like this and you develop the tools, it's not so straightforward always to explain to others exactly how to use them. So these text boxes I talked about that accompany every single tool, that took quite a long time to be very structured with. And so I had a number of pre-readers as I was writing the book that would read the book along with that I was writing it. just to make sure that it was written, because the book is written in a very personal, very down to earth and very non-academic tone. So that my ambition here has been to make it a very easy read and very easy to grasp for people. And then I wanted it also to be very beautiful. So it's also printed in color. It's actually quite big. I'm just going to show you here the size. So it's actually this size. And is then also printed in color. So yeah.
Fantastic. I see, I think Cynthia was asking, because I can't access my screen anymore. The name of the book is The Complete Corporate Coaching Toolkit, right? Oh, there we are.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
Well done. Well done. Okay, she's put the link up as well. Fantastic. Yes, I mean, they're not to sound sacrilegious or whatsoever. I mean, it almost looks like it can be a Bible for us coaches, because it's very inclusive. I mean, just when you showed us the table of contents, you cover an awful lot in there.
Yeah, I cover a lot, and many. If you read the reviews on Amazon, there's a lot of executives also. They're actually using the book on their desk as a reference. So it's kind of like, I need to have a difficult conversation, right? So hang on a second, where is that in the book? So just to help to give me a little bit of structure, give me some inspiration on how to have this difficult conversation I'm going to be having in a couple of days. Or, let me reflect on. Yeah, right.
And for us coaches as well, to have these questions so beautifully formulated at our fingertips. And I mean, I don't want to sound patronizing at all here, but well done you, because I mean, this is a fantastic legacy, based on all these years of experience that you have. I mean, it's so wonderful that you've managed to pack it all in together and give it to us, to other coaches, in order to make the world a better place by having the great leaders of the 21st century. Right. Anybody else have a question? Anything? No? I mean, you did cover really in depth. So, I mean, in a way, it all comes down to awareness then, doesn't it? Awareness that we're raising in our clients about what they believe about leadership, about themselves, etc. But also us as a coach, right? So that we trust that inner voice.
Yeah, and I think, as coaches that are active in any kind of organization, I mean, what a fantastic opportunity to be a force for good and be able to be, a catalyst for a much better leadership. I mean, for me, leadership is the most important aspect in any organization. The tone is set at the top. Leaders cast a long shadow, and employees, whether consciously or subconsciously, are always looking to their leaders for guidance.
Yes.
And so if we can take part here and help to narrow this gap, which is very apparent today, then that's such a meaningful thing to do, to be that force for good.
Right. And I thought in particularly those. Oh, see, Sue has a question. Yes, Sue.
Oh, hi there. My video is on. I haven't been on
Strike.
video. Hi, how are you doing? That was great, Monica. I really enjoyed that. I'm working in this space in Jersey and the Channel Islands. So I'm really interested to know what you would recommend from further learning opportunities in relation to courses or qualifications in this area. Anything that you would recommend with your vast experience?
In the area of leadership, or
coaching.
corporate world. So well, for coaching, sort of, I recommend anyone who wants to be a coach to to have a coaching certification that is accredited, and to then
I'm maybe not clear. I'm already a coach, an accredited coach, but for me to further develop my skill set in this area, I wondered if you could recommend any other further learning opportunities.
So I haven't actually taken any leadership courses. I don't know if the IAPC&M, for example, have some courses geared towards that. I have a very strong corporate background, since that was my career before I became a coach. And so that's why I naturally went into corporate world. It was just such a natural fit for me to go in there when I decided to become a coach. And then, of course, you learn with your clients all the time. So, you know, I write that in the foreword also. My clients have really been my greatest teachers over all this time, when you are so privileged to be part of their strategic agenda, what is on their mind, and following, you know, all these trends and challenges and opportunities that they have. And I also do recommend any coach that wants to go into the corporate domain, if you don't already have a solid corporate background, to absolutely get a little bit of training in that, but to try to get some real pragmatic training around that, to steer away from the more academical training that I'm sure is out there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very interested in the book, so
I think the book will also give you a fair amount, because what I've tried to explain in the book, which I did at the outset here of the masterclass also, is to show how things are moving. And the book really sets the scene on how corporate world is transitioning and how this is important, so that we understand the role that we can play in that transition.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Really interesting session. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that is our challenge, isn't it, as well? Because I mean, things are faster and faster paced. So yes, humans will remain humans, but still the needs of our society, and then, you know, what goes on in corporate are obviously linked to, you know, fulfilling those needs. So everything is constantly in movement. And I particularly like those 6 styles of leadership, and the idea that nowadays it's not a one size fits all. You need to know, to have that flexibility to know when to draw from which style.
Yeah. I mean, this has massively changed compared to when I was in corporate world, where you had to always adapt to whoever your manager was. And now the pyramid has really changed. And not just when you're leading others, but also this whole stakeholder management piece, because everyone is busier than ever, because there's so much noise. This stakeholder management has become such a popular coaching topic over the last 10 years, I would say. We need the support of others to achieve what we want to achieve when we're sitting in the business world. So we need to make sure that we're really connecting with the right people, and that we're forging strong professional relationships. This is to achieve our vision, our purpose, and our objectives. But also, if we're looking to get promoted to the next level, who is our sponsor? Or sponsors, you know? So everything has become much more sort of complex, and much more emphasis on these soft skills than ever before, I would say.
Would you say
a huge contrast?
Sorry, as a last question from my side, I'm just sort of thinking along. I mean, I'm very much brought up in the international world, and I work in the international world. Would you say that the questions and all of that are applicable to all coaching or all corporate cultures, is more what I want to say. I'm just even thinking, you know, corporate, there is a paradigm shift, etc. But then some countries are going through that faster than others. France, for example, is highly hierarchical in whatever goes on within the corporate world. I'm now based in Holland, which is a much flatter style of management and organization, where you can voice your opinion wherever you are on the level, etc. How easily would this book be, for example, in the Asian world, where there's, again, you know, very, very different way of going about the corporate world? Would you just say you take it at different degrees, as in the different styles, etc., but then at different degrees?
I think you always have to adapt your coaching to the environment, obviously, that you are in. I mean, here in Luxembourg, where I'm based and where I operate from, we are such a multicultural country.
Right.
So I am coaching people from all over the world here, because we have, you know, that's the way our workforce looks like. 50% of the population of Luxembourg are all foreigners.
Yes.
So, but then also when I see how the book is selling, so it's selling in the US, it's selling in Asia, it's selling in Australia, it's selling even in Latin America. And the feedback that I'm not getting a cultural differences on the tools. And because they are questions largely, and they are models, right? And so the answers will be very much then geared culturally on
Yes.
what that means. So
Yes,
but
exactly. Indeed, they'll be answering it from where they are within what that
yes.
question means to them. Thank you. Thank you.
And the coach will need to be very sensitive to, you know, what that means, because I think when you coach in the corporate world, you also need to be extremely sensitive to the organization you're coaching in, their
Yes.
strategy, their culture, their vision.
Definitely.
And you need to come in there elegantly and be able to, well, pace, lead.
Right.
To kind of quote NLP, which I think is, you know,
Yes.
I love that term.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Now, anybody else have any burning issue? I see there's been some big thank yous and goodbyes in the chats as people have moved on. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, I will say a very big thank you to you, Monica, for sharing. I am very eager myself to get hold of the book, and I will certainly recommend it around. It sounds like the sort of thing, as you said, you mentioned the word gift as well, you know, the sort of thing that the more widespread this sort of information gets, the more hope we will have for a corporate generation and then a world generation, which is a force for good, like you said before. So thank you very much. For the rest of you out there, thank you for being with us on our IAPC&M call today. Take action. You know, that's what we were saying as well. Yes. Sorry, did somebody have something to say? No. Monica, was that you?
No,
well, let me just say also that if anyone wants to connect with me, then please look me up on LinkedIn. I will be delighted to connect with you on LinkedIn. So that's the best place to find me. I try to post inspirational content there 3-4 times a week, some food for thought and things that are also related sort of around leadership, emotional intelligence, and so on.
Fantastic.
So I would love to receive your connection requests there.
We shall. Cynthia, sorry, I interrupted you. Were you just saying goodbye?
Thank you so much, Julie, Monica, and everybody for a lovely session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Take
Monica.
care.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.